In this lesson, we'll cover some of the effects that Graphtec Studio has to offer. The two effects that we'll cover are drop shadows and offset path, which is a way of outlining or inlining a vector object. Drop shadows are an effect that can add a nice 3D effect to objects. When shadows are applied to a shape or object, they are attached to the object, as if being a part of the object. This way, as the shape adjusts, so will the shadow. Yet at the same time, they are considered as a line or vector shape that will be cut separately from the other objects. To create a drop shadow on a shape, first click on the object or objects to which you'll be adding the drop shadow. And then click on the Shadows tool icon, which is just to the right of the Fill tool icon. This will open the drop shadow settings in the side panel. As a default, the drop shadow is disabled. To enable it, simply click on the Show Shadow checkbox. Once clicked, a drop shadow appears behind the selected object. Now we can make adjustments. Let's review some of the settings that are available. First is the shadow type. There are two choices, dynamic and fixed. A dynamic shadow will always keep the shadow in the same direction. In other words, if the object is rotated, the shadow will always remain in the same direction from the object. A fixed shadow type will attach to the object so that, as the object is rotated, the shadow will rotate with the object. The offset affects mostly the distance of the shadow from the original object. Entering the X and Y values not only affects the distance, but the angle as well. Keep in mind that when the X and Y values are the same value, the shadow will be positioned at a 45-degree angle from one of the four corners of the object. To adjust the pattern's position visually, click on Pan Shadow. This will place a grab handle over the shape and shadow. Then, grabbing the handle allows the drop shadow to be repositioned. The transparency of the shadow can be adjusted for a more subtle look or a more dynamic look. Keep in mind though that if the shadow is to be cut out, the color of your vinyl used for the shadow will determine the final look. Enabling Cut Around Shadow will ensure that when the object is cut, the shadow is part of the shape, as if they were welded together. This is mostly used when cutting vinyl because it prevents edges of the underlying shadow piece from showing. When creating a shadow, it is attached to the original object. In other words, if the object is repositioned, so is the shadow. In this state, the shadow is not independent from the object. Release Shadow will separate the shadow from the object so that it becomes an independent object. At the bottom, Graphtec Studio provides several options for setting the color of the shadow. This includes a transitional color palette, a place for HSL or RGB values, a color number, or a color eyedropper, which lets the shadow be set to a color that matches the object. The next effect is the offset path feature. Creating an offset path can really enhance a design. It can also be used to create a cut line for print and cut applications. An offset can be an outline or an inline of a shape or object. For instance, on the screen is text. The goal is to create an outline that will act as a cut line for making a decal. First, let's select the text. Then click the Offset tool icon. This will open the options in the side panel. At the top of the side panel, we have two choices. Offset, which will place a contoured line to the outside of the object, and Internal Offset, which places a contoured line on the inside of the object. In this case, we'll use the offset to place the contoured line on the outside of our text. Now we simply adjust the distance by using this slider bar, or entering a value. Currently it is set to 0.25 or 1/4 of an inch. The distance can be increased if we enter a higher value in this box here. Below gives us a choice of rounded or sharp corners. All we have to do now is click Apply. Notice that Studio automatically welds all the objects together. To make the cut line more subtle so that it doesn't dominate the design, we can go ahead and change the line color to a lighter gray, and then change the line type to dashed. To learn about the print and cut process using Graphtec Studio, please review the lesson on print and cut.